Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Today, it is our pleasure to be welcomed by a great friend of the show, the fourth all-time leading receiver in Washington history by yards, third in receptions, unless I got those two backwards. He's fourth in one, third in another. Number one in our hearts, of course, though. It is Santana Moss. Tana, man, what's up?
What's good, buddy? How you doing?
Good. For all the years that we did the show together and all the times I've introduced you with all variety of stats, I'd actually never looked up the where you ranked on the team in terms of yardage and catches until today. So did you know that where you were, fourth and third?
Yeah, man. I was, it's crazy. I tell folks all the time that I never really, be paying attention to some of my stuff. But late in my career, that year that I didn't really play as much, I was pissed because I knew I could have easily got ranked up at least 400, 500 yards to kind of solidify some of those spots. But, it is what it is. And, get a couple of catches too that year. But I didn't think about it until my last year playing. I was like, man, why stop now? Why they don't play me now so I can go ahead and go out the door and pad my stats a little bit. But it is what it is, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. I will also say you are the only player in franchise history to have 1,000 career targets because they didn't start counting targets until Art Monk and Gary Clark's last couple years in the league. So technically they only have 160 career targets, although we know that was not the case. But there you go. So that. Add that one to your business card, Tana. You're the only player in Washington franchise history with over 1,000 career targets. So there's that.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, so Jahan Dotson will not get 1,000 career targets for Washington because he is now a Philadelphia Eagle, which is, of course, why we wanted to have you on to talk about the receiver room. And let's start with the trade in Jahan, though. What did you see from Jahan this camp that you think wasn't up to what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn were looking for so that they go ahead and make this move?
I mean, it wasn't what I saw. I think, every now and then you get a glimpse of those guys when you're out there at practice, which I was one of those guys. For the time that we're out there, we're doing our job and you're watching. But you're watching basically, the whole entire practice. You're not really specifically paying attention to individual guys. I would look at the receivers here and there, but you don't see them out there when they're going against each other when it comes to one-on-one or live. And it seemed like he was doing what he's been doing. He's a guy that, I don't know how much you're looking for until you have to really break down the film, you know what I mean, and really watch him as a coach would break down his individual guys and their reps. So I'm pretty sure it was something there, that stood out that they wasn't pleased with. But I also say, man, when you look at this thing as a whole, we all know the kid can play football. Yes, he might not be what they wanted in their primary guy. And when I say primary, I mean your number one and your number two wide receiver. So if I'm not going to have you as my number one and number two receiver and I have somebody else, slotted as that third guy, why keep you around? You know what I mean? Or why lose you? Why cut you and not get something for you? So I think, when I kind of I'm trying to piece all this together, in so many different perspectives. I'm looking at it like, look, it was a smart decision when it comes to if you don't see a future there with you guys, let me go out there and bargain them and see who's out there willing to deal for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know whether they would have cut him, but certainly the value of a former first-round pick being, a rotational piece when they can get a third-round pick in return, you totally understand why Adam does that. And Tana, for you guys on Command Center, of course you can watch Santana on Command Center on the Commanders YouTube page and all their digital shows. For me and the show that I do on the podcast front, the closest thing we have to a coach breaking down film is Logan. And one thing that Logan has said for really going back into last year when he's watched Jahan is there isn't an urgency and a physicality to his game. We know those are things that are really important for Dan Quinn. For a guy who played the position, when I say playing with urgency and playing with physicality, what does that mean to you for a receiver?
Well, when you say urgency, man, it's like one of those things that if I'm in this route concept and I'm not boogieing down the field or try to clear it out or get to my spot, that's the urgency part that would stand out to me. I've seen that. I have watched film last year, and I was questioning, was those guys not familiar with the route tree or were things complicated because you see guys coasting here and there. And yes, that name stood out a couple of times. And then when you say physicality, being dominant, you just gotta be able to win your battle. If you're not in the passing tree, but somebody else is, and you have to block for them, like on a slip screen, win that battle. Know where to line up at. Know where to, get your leverage on that defender to make sure that somebody's not blowing through you and blowing up the play. We've seen that a couple of times. Things like that. So, trust me, when Logan breaks down film, yes, he's not going to say something that he doesn't see. And we've talked about that numerous times. And Logan get a chance to talk to the coaches, and he heard some of those rumblings and whispers too. So, with all that being said, those are some of the things that will kill any player. You know what I'm saying? Especially at that position. If you're not consistent when it comes to some of those things, you have to be consistent. Yeah, I can see you do it once, I can see you do it twice, but I need you to be. I need to be able to count on you every time I depend on you for one of those situations. And if I can't count on you, then I'm looking for the next man up. And when you're a first-round pick, you don't want them to be looking for the next man up because that's what ends up happening. You end up going elsewhere.
Santana Moss with us here on the Hoffman Show. And Santana, you and Jahan, you're slightly different sizes. You were a little bit shorter, had a little bit more weight to you, but you're really not that far different in terms of the builds that you guys had. And so I'm curious for a smaller guy relative to NFL wide receivers, not as a general human being, but as an NFL wide receiver. And we talk about that physicality piece, and one thing that I know Logan talked about was getting pushed off routes and stuff down the field. How much of that is work you do in the weight room versus technique versus just pure want to?
I'm not going to sit here and say the kid didn't want to, man, because it's hard for me to believe that he didn't want to. But I can say, man, if you just, one of the things I learned that a lot of folks take for granted is it's two different leagues when it comes to what you did in college and here in the NFL. This a grown man sport over here, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of men out there, you know what I mean, like out there really fighting day in and day out, every down for their job. So, if somebody, like I was one of those guys, I knew when to pick my battles. I'm not a physical receiver when it comes to the standpoint of wanted to fight with guys at the line of scrimmage, but I'm also, with that being said, I don't like the hands on me at the line of scrimmage. I use what I had, my God gifts, and that means to be quick and fast, but I will also not tolerate somebody putting hands on me downfield when I'm running in my route. That's when I turn that switch on and say, okay, I'm going to throw something at you, or I'm going to make sure that you don't try me in those situations. And I think that certain receivers, they got to have that switch cut on sometimes. It might not be themselves telling them that. It might have to come from a coach or come from somebody who's watching it. But oftentimes, I remember being in, meeting rooms in college, and my college coach used to get on certain guys like, man, you don't have a dog in you. And, some of the receivers be looking at, why they're not playing, have all the talent in the world, but you don't know how to fight. And we're not talking about physically fighting. We're just talking about battling when it comes to you need this play better, more than this guy needed play. So it shouldn't be something that you have to turn on. But every now and then, even the most talented guys need that talk or need that pep talk to kind of get them going. And I think we did hear often too many times that was questioned.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Tana, about not saying and I've been really careful about this with Jahan over the last day too, because the times that I've talked to him, I do sense a bit of a dog in him, and I do think he's a competitive guy, but I think the trick is, and you would know this far better than me, having had to do it versus me just talking to guys who either done it in your case or doing it in my 10 years now covering the NFL, the ability to channel that into productivity, I would imagine that's the really hard part. Is it's not just a want to, it's a need to, and then how do I get that to actually come out on the field?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. People find it because when you look back at it, you're like, man, the guy can play. You look at what he did his rookie season. You look at what he put up last year. I mean, it wasn't godly numbers, but those are productive numbers from a guy you look for as in the rotation of a wide receiver core in the NFL. But we say all that, and then we say, okay, but he was a first-round pick. So come year 3, I don't want to have to be mentioning, I need this from you. You know, when you're a first-round pick, year 3, you need to be Terry or better. You understand? So I shouldn't have to be going to the draw board saying I'm still looking for a number 2 or I'm still looking to see who's going to, you know, fill out this wide receiver core. So I think those are the things that will raise anybody eyebrow, especially those coaches who are trying to build a team over there, been in a competitive team over there. And when you have so many other guys in that room that have a different kind of hunger, and I mean a different kind of hunger, meaning that 1, they're trying to make the squad. 2, they're trying to be recognized as one of the, you know, guys on that core wide receiver group. And then 3, they're like, look, I'm not trying to be cut off this team because, you know, I've been here for a few years. You know, those are the different kind of things that you're battling each and every week. And if you're comfortable where you at because of the contract, because you know you have 4 years or you know you're a first-round pick, I'm not saying that this was going on in, you know, Jahan's case, but sometimes you get complacent with that and might not think you're a part of that battle. And when you're not stepping up or you're not doing something, you might look at it, well, I'm not getting opportunity. But trust me, that eye in the sky don't lie. They always watching, regardless of if you're thrown in the light or not. They're looking to see how you're competing, how you're battling each and every play. And it might be a play or two that you thought that, hey, I'm not getting graded on this, and that might be the play that was the deciding factor. So, look, man, we all speculate here. You never really know, man. But I just think it's odd for, you know, a guy of that caliber that this team didn't see fit from. And I'm not saying it's odd for the team because, look, they're here to build a championship caliber team. So I'm gonna go with whatever they say, you know, that's right for them. But from the standpoint of a former first round 16 overall pick like Jahan himself, I would find it odd that he wasn't the guy that they didn't see that could have potential enough to be there and be that kind of playmaker he was his rookie season.
Well, so this is a fun thing to have you on for. Santana Moss is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Here's the terrifying part for Washington fans, Tana, is you can also speak to what it's like to get a fresh start somewhere when you are a really talented first-round receiver. Luckily for everybody who's a fan of burgundy and gold, in your case, it was coming from New York to here, and you were ridiculous in those early seasons, especially after you got that fresh start and just absolutely took off. For Jahan, he's hoping that happens. It's a different situation. Obviously, he's going to be the third guy behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But who knows how the next couple of years go up there. What does that fresh start do for a player? What did it do for you, and what could it do for Jahan?
I mean, it all depends, man. You know, it's funny because I often reflect on that memory of me and my agent having that talk. Like, I really didn't want to leave New York, and they didn't want me to leave. They wanted me to play my last year, but my agent felt like I exceeded my contract with my play. And he was like, bro, you deserve to get paid. They told you they was going to pay you going into the 4th year, and then now they want to back out and say, oh, we need one more year. And he was like, that's ludicrous. So, you know, different situations. You see what I'm saying? Different strokes for different folks. But when I got here, you got to think I was on the climb in my career. I had just played my first full season in 2002, which I was all-pro as a punt returner. And then the next year, turn around, I had my first 1,000-yard season in 2003. Then the next year in 2004, I lead the team again. I didn't have 1,000 yards, but now I take them to the second-round playoffs and have 2 big games in that standpoint. So it's different strokes for different folks when it comes to what situations we coming from. So when I got here in Washington, I was ready. I was on that high already. So it was no questioning how and why 2005 was so special for me, because I was kind of climbing that ladder at that point. When you get a guy like Jahan right now, I'm not saying he's on a downward spiral, but I do believe he still have growth. And now he's going into a situation where he might not be the vocal point. He's not going to be the guy who they're depending on like we was depending on him here. So when you get a guy that has the talent that he does have, and now he gets lost in the offense with a bunch of talent around him, guess what? He's the guy that's going to get the one-on-one coverages. Now he can sit there and beat you or beat your third best guy in that slot. So, look, man, I think the sky's the limits for him. I know people don't want to hear me say that, and this might be just because I have so much, I think I have a lot, for Jahan. I really liked the kid. I think he was a guy that I was hoping to see him really flourish this year, because knowing that the talent is there. But, man, you put him on a Philadelphia Eagles team where there's a lot of talent around him at the tight end position, running back position, and both receivers. Man, he's going to be the odd guy. He's going to be the guy that team's not going to check, and he's going to be wide open. So now it's going to be like, guess what? Come save us in these situations when we playing guys or playing teams that's going to have these other guys double and triple.
For sure. It's a totally different equation. And, of course, here in Washington, Dan Quinn's going to look at Mike Sanders still and be like, you're the guy. Go get him. Remember what we did in practice. You go do that. So we'll see how that all goes down. Last thing for you, Santana, is what's left here. Has there been any, whether it's Olamide Zaccheaus, whether it's Luke McCaffrey, Dyami Brown, as you've watched practice, as you've watched the preseason games, any of those guys that you're particularly excited about that are now going to have not just a bigger role, but a bigger responsibility to support Terry McLaurin and support Jaden Daniels here in his rookie season?
I mean, right now, I think the only position at the wide receiver position that's solidified is Terry. Don't get me wrong, we got Luke that's young, and trust me, the sky's the limit for him. So I'm sure that, he'll take wherever they throw him in at. I think he'll be a slot guy. But to me, all those other guys, man, is up for competition, and I do, believe kind of losing Jahan now kind of leave the door open for a guy like Dyami to stay around. I'm going to be real with you. Like, coming into this last preseason game, he was trending to me into being the top 3. I do like Zaccheaus, too. He's shown a lot, and he's a veteran guy that knows how to fit in and play his role. So I'm pretty sure that he can easily be here. But then you got a guy like Jamison Crowder, too, who I believe that can be a slot guy. He's a veteran. He can be a punt returner. He can play any one of those positions, X or Z. And that's what's going to be the kind of, what I'm going to be looking at going into this third preseason game, rather this weekend, just to see how many guys are out there playing. And, if you see a guy in this game, they're really out there playing for a job. So I'm going to be watching that wide receiver group to see who starts the game and to see what kind of, how things transpire going into halftime. Because by halftime, we should know if those guys out the game in that first half, then they're not playing no more for their spot.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point about knowing by halftime. Do you ever mess with Jamison and be like, why do I look younger than you?
Why you going to do my dog like that?
Look, Jamison's one of my favorite guys. I've covered him since he was a rookie. He's looked like he's 38 years old or 42 years old since he was 22 years old, and he knows it.
Hey, he wise beyond his years, man. I mean, that's all I can say. Nah. He still looks younger than me. I don't know about yourself. He
okay.
Looks younger than me.
Okay. I'm just, that's I love JC. He's the best, and he can laugh at himself, and he's, we're just having fun here on the radio. That's all we're doing, Tana. Hey, really appreciate it. Great perspective as always, and we'll definitely be talking throughout the year, bro.
All right, brother. Take care. Appreciate you.
That is Santana Moss, everybody. Watch him on the Commanders YouTube page, on Command Center. I believe he does the Get Loud podcast, although the loud part is definitely Fred Smoot. So you can catch all that on the Commanders digital channels. Appreciate Tana's time, as always.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.